Okay, we're moving on to part 2 of the modeling of the airplane series. What we're going to do now is we can tumble around here and look where we were one more time. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to do some of the nuts and bolts modeling that we need to set this up properly. Now we have a number of options we can use to do that. What I'm going to do for right now is we don't need the airplane right now. That just clutters the scene, okay? So I'm just going to come in and we'll pan the screen over. And remember again, pan is shift plus middle mouse, zoom is the middle mouse scrolling, and then tumble is just middle mouse by itself. Okay, so here we are, we have that. Sometimes I like to be able to see the edges when the object is selected, and something we haven't discussed in class before, but we'll talk about, are overlays. You can see here viewport overlays. There's a lot of things we can turn on. I'm going to turn on wireframe, and just to show you guys, I'm also going to turn on face orientation, which shows you the normal of the faces. You can see here that the outside of the face is blue and the inside of the face is shown as red. So now you can start to see the face normal. We've discussed that in the past, that each face has a direction. So now you can use that to see what the direction is. Okay, I'm going to turn that overlay off. I don't think we need face orientation on the whole time. And then sometimes for aligning, I like to just have it in wireframe as well. So here we go. What we want to do is we want to start to bridge this all shut. And we've discussed this technique. I will discuss it again in class. If you have I will discuss again what we discussed in class. We have this 12-sided cylinder. It's crucial for my technique that we're using the 12-side. We can come up with other techniques, but if you're following along, you should have 12. Okay, I'm going to get out of object mode. Remember the hotkey for that again is tab. So I'm going to get into edit mode, and I'm going to go to edge select. On the keys, by the way, if you look up here on the window, you can see I'm toggling between the different selection modes. Number 1 on the keyboard is vertice, number 2 on the keyboard is edge, and number 3 on the keyboard is face. Let's go to edge. I'm going to select the top one, then I'm going to hold down shift, and I'm going to select the bottom one. We select 2. Alright, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say bridge edge loops. Now remember again, we could come in here and add cuts, but if we add cuts, you'll see that they don't line up with these edges. If I'm trying to make these nice clean quads, it winds up it's distributed in a way that doesn't work out very well for this. So I'm going to get rid of that, and we'll cut those by hand. And you remember that my technique that I like to use on this is to tumble and or pan the view to get a pair of coincident edges lining up. So visually we can get it very, very close when we are modeling this. It might not be pixel perfect, but it'll be so close you won't be able to tell. And that's a very professional way to work when people are looking at your models. They shouldn't look sloppy. So we're going to go to loop, cut, and slide, and you can see here it's previewing where, based on where my mouse is, what the loop cut would look like. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click, which shows that where it's going, and then I'm going to line that up with that edge that we were working on over there. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing for that bottom pair of edges, and I'm going to get that worked out pretty nicely, and then once again I'm going to do loop, cut, and slide, click, and stop that. Let's do that again. Loop, cut, and slide. I'm going to click and then drag without letting go, and there you go. And then I click one more time, and there we have. Those now are well laid out, and they're really well lined up with the sets of edges that are currently there. That's an extra step, but it pays to do things correctly. Please do your best work whenever you're working, no matter what you do. We're going to bridge those again. We're going to bridge here, and we're going to bridge here as well. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say bridge those edge loops. And now you see that the way we've constructed this is that we now have 1, 2, 3, 4-sided open spaces in each corner. So because it's 4-sided, we can make a nice quad. Select an edge, skip an edge, no matter which way you go. I could skip one and select one, or I could skip one and select one. It equals the same thing in the end. And then we're going to right click and we're going to say bridge. And you'll notice something. If I come over here and I select this and I right click, it remembers what the last task was we were doing and moves the menu as best it can to where it was for the last selection. So bridging now will be increasingly easy because when we right click, the menu should be right there as long as your menu has enough screen space to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and grab these. So you'll notice if I pan this up and I select, now when I right click, it's going to be right there. But I want to show you something. If we pan back down, all right, and I select this one, and then I control selected, not shift selected. Let's grab that again. Now when I click, it's not right where my mouse is because I ran out of screen space down here, which isn't the end of the world, but just be aware of that's why that happens. Okay, so I'm going to select the edge, skip one, select another, and it doesn't matter which direction you go in, you're just selecting the opposite. So I'm going to right click and bridge, and there you go. We have finished closing the end of this object. I'm going to go back to a shaded view so you can see what that looks like. Now when I add in subdivisions, you'll see that something still seems wrong with this, and that we've got these knuckles on the ends of the cylinder here. That's a slight issue, and we have to kind of creep up on that. So what's going on is that we don't have what I like to call a control loop around the end of this. And if you remember in class, that's one of the tasks that we did. So let's go ahead and attempt to fix this. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to do loop, cut, and slide, and you can see here, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to make a halfway decently sized quad at the front here, and then click again, and so now we've added an edge loop there. Now I'm going to go into face select, which is 3 on the keyboard, and I'm going to keep holding shift, and I'm going to shift select those faces, okay, and then the technique I like to use on this is to say extrude, and then I just click. Alright, so I haven't done anything. And this is a cool trick. You'll watch now if I'm on scale. Now when I scale down, it remembers that extrude, that I didn't really move anywhere, and now I get that nice border around the edge because I didn't extrude with no position to it. It was just, I just left it alone and then scaled. And you have to click off of the extrude before you move your mouse, or it starts doing all that weird stuff. Let me show you what I mean. So if I hit extrude and I just start moving the mouse, it's going to start extruding in a way that's unpredictable and I don't want. Okay, so I'm going to click and then I'm going to undo that. Alright, so one more time I have this. I'm going to even undo a couple more times just to drive this point home. I have all those faces selected. I'm going to right click, hit extrude, and then just click again. I'm not moving the mouse at all. Now I'm on scale. It helps to have scale pre-selected, and we can scale this down, and then now we have this nice control loop around this edge of all quads. And let's talk about selecting edge loops. Now I'm going to show you the trick for that is that if you hold down Alt and select near the edge in the direction you want it to select in, it'll select the loop. So for example, if I select near the top edge, it's going to select the loop going that way. If I select near the right edge, it's going to select the loop going this way. And what it's doing is it's just saying basically select the edge that's most perpendicular, like skip the 2 parallel ones and go to the one on the far side, however you want to view that. Okay, on this one, if I hold down Alt and I select up here, I'm holding the wrong hotkey, you can see what that edge loop looks like. Okay, and it's a little bit bizarre sometimes how the edge loops work, but that's part of the thing we're going to learn as we learn more and more about polygons, is learning to control how those edge loops behave so we can use them to our advantage. Okay, now we have that. Now let's go ahead and add some of the subdivision back, and you can see now the cylinder is just absolutely nice and circular on the end, and now we can adjust how much we have here by scaling these faces until we're happy with it. We are on face select. Let's go ahead and we'll shift select those faces again. Careful to only click select and not accidentally start dragging because we'll start scaling right away. So now what we can do is we can control the size of that, what they call a fillet, alright, and the way that we're going to do that is right here we can scale the faces on the front. On the side faces we've got to actually do this a little differently. For that I'm going to Alt select the actual edge loop, I'm going to go to move, alright, and then we're going to move this back in X, and you can see I can control how tight that fillet is on the front of our airplane until we feel comfortable with it. Now granted, in our GB that we're looking at here, okay, I'm going to, let's see where that was again here. I believe it was Alt-Z turns on X-ray, so we're going to turn on X-ray, which doesn't help the best for this. But you can see right now as it is, if we go back now to object mode, we need to move this object back. So we are not actually where that belongs relative to the view that we're looking at. So you can see it tucks behind the column. We have to make some assumptions there, but at least we've got this now where it's starting to look correct, and we can go back into edit mode, which again is tab, and we will go back to face, select, we will click the icon here, but we could also hit 3 on the keyboard. Okay, we're going to shift select those faces that we need again. Alright, and then now we're going to move these so that they're not coplanar anymore with the other edges that we were dealing with. Alright, and we're close. You can see it's still, the lead-in is a little bit strange, and that's getting a little bulbous. So I'm going to tackle this another way. I'm going to do that, then I'm going to go to Edge Select. I will hold down Alt so we select the whole loop, and then we'll start to finish it off here with just moving that edge loop until we're happy. And you can see, you know, we could split hairs and try to get this exactly the way that we think it should go. And I would encourage you to do that until you feel comfortable with the result. Okay, and we could discuss that. Let's go ahead and we'll Alt select that whole loop, and then we could control it here, but then it's obviously going to be a little different at the top. And this is the thing again about blueprints. Blueprints are only as good as the people who create them. So no blueprint is perfect. Alright, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I'm going to come out of edit mode back to object mode, and then we can start to talk about moving forward again from the base mesh and starting to add more detail into the airplane. And I'm going to leave that for the next video. That'll do it for now.